Hello and welcome back to the Resilience Reef, the show that we share stories and strategies for people who want to manage their chronic illness or disease or injury better. Today I've got Dr Evelyn Chang back with me. Hi Evelyn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. So Evelyn is a dietitian. She owns Rainbow Nutrition and Dietetics here on the Sunshine Coast, where we both live, and works with a lot of different kind of special interest is chronic disease, so particularly kidney disease, diabetes, and a few other things. But today we're going to be talking specifically about kidney disease or kidney dysfunction in some way or another. It's not a lot, I don't know a lot about that area, but I know Evelyn does. So we're going to be talking about some of the strategies that you can use to preserve your kidney function. So if you haven't got kidney disease yet, but you're maybe at risk of getting it, we did a show on that, and I'll put that in the link. We did that a few weeks ago, where Evelyn came on and shared some great strategies for managing, not getting to the stage of having kidney disease or kidney dysfunction. But some people won't be able to mitigate that risk because of the kind of conditions that they have. But there are some things you can definitely do once you have it, and to preserve that kidney function and to relieve the symptoms that you're having from your kidney problems. So welcome again to the show, Evelyn. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you for having me today, Karen.
So share with us a little bit about the kind of things that what people will experience, I suppose, if they have kidney function. What kidney function problems or kidney disease? What kind of things are they likely to experience with that?
Yeah. So in terms of symptoms, there's not much symptoms that they experience. So chronic kidney disease is actually a silent disease. So because of that, a lot of time people just try to ignore it because they don't experience any symptoms. But otherwise, when you get into later stage, for example, stage 4, people start to get anemic. So that means their iron is low, they feel fatigue. Then there's also a lot of the time they are easily bruised. So when they knock into something, it get easily bruised. So sometimes when I talk to my clients, they say, "Oh, I'm not sure why, but recently I just easily get bruised." So that might be one of the symptoms. And then they will get bone problem because kidney is one of the important organs that help to activate vitamin D that will help in our bone health, getting a strong bone. So even though we get the sunlight, so to get that activated vitamin D, there's a pathway. So when you get the vitamin D, so our skin will have the vitamin D, but it's not activated. So when you go outside and get the sunlight, it will activate the vitamin D. And then after that, there's a cascade pathway. And then the kidney will involve in one of the activation. So when your kidney is not in good function, then you lost that activation stage, and therefore the activation of vitamin D is not completed, and therefore you're not going to get a strong bone health. So therefore, a lot of the time when it comes to later stage of kidney, then you tend to get bone problem, which is quite common. Yeah, and a lot of the time, they need to get supplementation of vitamin D and calcium. Yeah, so those are a few things of kidney problems when they have kidney problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite difficult then in the early stages if there are no visible or kind of signs and symptoms to be able to say, to stop it in its tracks early stages, is it? So it's not until about stage 4 when people really start to feel and see difference, see things going wrong, and that's when they typically come and present. Is it? Is that the stage that late? Is that the latest stage 4? Are there more stages?
Stage 5 is the last stage where you basically need to go dialysis. So
Okay.
that's the end stage where we say you have kidney failure at stage 5. So
Okay.
yeah, so a lot of the time it's the stage 4 or late stage 4 you start to present a lot of symptoms. But otherwise,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like otherwise in stage 3, usually they don't really present a lot of symptoms. But sometimes when you get too much nitrogen waste from eating too much protein, you might get urethmic syndrome, whereby so what it means is that you get this metallic taste in your mouth, and then you might be a bit foggy, not able to concentrate. Those are because of the uremic toxin that you accumulated in your body. That might happen, but it will be around stage 4. Some people get it end of stage 3, but most of the time is stage 4 or end of stage 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any idea of how long people would be in stage 4? How much time they've got to preserve the function and to limit the damage that's being done before they go to the end stage? Is there a sense of how long that takes?
It all depends on how. A lot of the time, diet play an important role in here. So there are a few things that as a dietitian, we are able to help them to preserve the kidney function, to slow the progression of kidney going to get worse and worse. But if they are not taking good care of the kidney, it can go fast, very fast, like within few months, it can go down.
Wow.
Yeah, so it all depends on how you preserve your kidney function.
For sure. So that's a good segue into talking about diet and nutrition and how we can, we can do so much, can't we? We can do so much with our diet and nutrition. It is so underrated in terms of what we put in our bodies and how it affects the functioning of all our organs. So in terms of the kidney function, if someone is in that kind of stage 3, 4, late 3, 4, and they really don't want to be getting to the point of 5, it sounds like that's the point of is it a point of no return once you go on to dialysis? Is that you've got to get some new kidneys? Is that where you're at with stage 5? Is that the process?
Yeah, so at stage 5, when you get kidney failure, usually you go in dialysis and waiting for transplant.
So you really don't want to be there.
No, because dialysis, when you need to go for dialysis, that means that you need to allocate 3 times a week, and at each time 4 to 5 hours just going to dialysis. So the quality of life is not, I mean, it's declined because of dialysis. A lot of the time, people doesn't really want to go dialysis because once you get there, you don't have a good quality of life.
Yeah, and you're just sitting and hoping and waiting for someone to be kindly enough to pass away or to donate one of their kidneys to supply you with the necessaries to function well again. And that's really not a good place to be, because you're really not in control of that situation. Whereas you are in control of the kind of things you can do for self-management to stop yourself from getting there, right?
Yeah, definitely. So so the thing about there's not many people aware that how diet is important and how diet can play an important role in preserving your kidney function. And even if some they are aware, but sometimes they might not be persevere in when you get so if you want to preserve your kidney function, one of the best diet that we recommend is plant-based diet. So what it means, plant-based diet basically means that you have to eat lots of fruit and vegetables and eat less, or it depends on the stages of your kidney. If your kidney function are not that good anymore, so we kind of like recommend less of the animal protein, even less protein, and sometimes to the extent that we encourage you to just have plant protein rather than animal protein. So it all depends on the stage of your kidney function. So with that, a lot of the time, I find that Australian they like to eat animal protein. They enjoy steak. They enjoy all those the meat, the red meat. So when you ask them not to eat them, a lot of the time it's just quite impossible for them. So with that, I think one of the good strategies might be to slowly introduce plant protein and slowly reducing your animal protein intake. So that might be a good strategy to help. And anyway, you don't have to, even if you have kidney problem, you don't have to not having the animal protein completely. There are ways to work around it, but you need to do it in several sessions. Yeah.
And it's good to get help with that, because I think if you are completely a novice dealing with it, because I'm vegan, I've been on a plant-based diet for a long time. There are things to do and things, to stay healthy with it, because we need to be able to, I agree, it is an incredibly healthy diet to have. But if you're not eating a wide variety of minerals and vitamins and getting in all the necessary rainbow type nutrition that we talk about in your practice, then you can have malnutrition, you can have all sorts of kind of deficiencies in your diet. And that's super important to know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, by kind of seeing someone like you, a professional who knows about and can gradually help you through it, especially if you don't want to jump in the deep end and just cut everything out, because that could be more damaging than good if you have no clue of what you're eating and you're just cutting everything out because you're not sure what to do with it. So that's super important, isn't it, to be able to access someone, even if it's just a few sessions, to be able to get you going, and then you kind of see how you go by yourself. But I think that is incredibly important.
So plant, to go into vegan, as you say, is quite it's quite different. So you need to make sure you have enough minerals and vitamins, because when you're not eating animal protein, one of the important minerals or vitamins that you not getting is vitamin B12. And a lot of the time people not getting enough protein. But again, in terms of kidney problems, that will be quite different, because when you get kidney problems, we're not. So as a dietitian, we're not only looking at whether you're getting enough minerals and vitamins and all sorts of energies and macronutrients from the vegan, but also we're trying not for you to get into complication. Because when you are at later stage of kidney problems, kidney disease, you might get hyperkalemia, where what it means is that if you look at your blood test result, your potassium, one of the electrolytes, can be very high or can be very low. So it can be quite dangerous, because either too high or too low, you might get into heart problems or emergency at the hospital because of the heart attack or cardiac arrest. So to manage that potassium level is really important. And there's also other complications such as your phosphorus, another type of electrolyte might get too high. So we need to manage all this. So then to work with a dietitian that have special interest in kidney is really helpful because they can help you to manage all this. So what it means that when you are in stage 4 of kidney problems, then you might do the blood test more regularly, sometimes every 3 months or every 6 months, depending on the doctors. But I think the other thing that I want to mention here is that a lot of time people doesn't know what is kidney problems. So when we say stage 3, stage 4, they was like, is this something to do with me or not? So so I would like to mention here is that if when I say when you have chronic kidney disease, what it means is that if you look at your blood test result, what we call is the liver function test, or so electrolyte liver function test, that blood test result. If you look at that, you can see there's potassium, there's sodiums, there's other tests, and just look for EGFR. So EGFRs. So make sure the EGFR is above 60. So if you see that your EGFR is lower than 60, what you need to do is that you have to monitor it. Make sure that in 3 months' time is going up. But if in 3 months' time your EGFR is still below 60, then that means that you have kidney problems. So that's how we look at it. And the other things might be you might want to do a urine test. So urine test just to see where there's any protein leak. So sometimes your urine can be very foamy. So when it gets very foamy, that means there's a protein leak from your kidney. So these are the 2 things that you might want to monitor.
Yeah, that's great advice. And for people that are in that situation, it is definitely super important by the sounds of it. There's a lot going on, isn't there? There's a lot of things that if you don't do it, I don't want to say kind of perfectly right, because no one necessarily will. They'll just get freaked out by the idea everything's got to be perfect. But all the kind of things need to be observed and measured and monitored, because otherwise, if one thing is out of kilter with other things, that in itself, because the body is such an incredibly complex organ, isn't it? The whole process of the body and how it works is incredibly fascinating to me always, but still incredibly complex. How one thing can, if that's not done right, can impact other parts of the system. And it is, I definitely, if I was in this position with a kidney dysfunction or disease, I would definitely not want to be sitting on this and doing this by myself. Just listening to you, even with the technical terms, I know all those technical terms, but still, for someone to get their head around those things themselves at a doctor's surgery, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. Oh, but how do I do it? How do I do all this? Where do I do it? You need that ability for someone to help you to implement it. And I so advocate for that with this kind of stuff, because you really don't want to get this wrong. Even though you don't want to get it perfect, you really don't want to get this wrong and end in that stage where you're sitting in a hospital bed 3 times a week for hours and hours, just waiting for what? Someone to donate something for you to live a quality of life. So yeah, I'm completely big advocate of dealing with this and doing some self-management on this for sure. If there's any chronic condition that needs self-managing, this is a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah. So chronic kidney disease definitely is something complicated. And even if you just look at potassium, managing potassium, it sounds really simple. So sometimes if your potassium level is high and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, you have to eat low potassium food. And a lot of the time they just ask you to cut. A lot of the time we will cut down those high potassium fruit, high potassium vegetables. But it's much more complicated than just cutting down the high potassium food because there's these recent studies that I look into. There's actually is a systematic review. So in any study, when it is at the systematic review stage, it means it's a really big studies where they will take lots of study and then analyze them together. So it's very powerful study. They actually accumulate up to 1 million plus participants, just gather all the studies together and they found that, and they've just found that by just cutting down the potassium. So if you say if you have high potassium, high blood potassium, and then you want to cut down all the low potassium, high potassium food, it's not as simple as that, because they found that the mortality is high. So that means you are at increased risk of dying if your potassium is too low or too high.
Right.
So, and they found there is this optimum level, which is, they look at it and they found that is the 4.5. So if you look at your blood test result, it is that 4.5 is the optimum level where people are at optimum. So the risk of pass away or die is the lowest when your potassium level is at 4.5. Because when you look at itself, potassium is very good for those with hypertension. So they actually help to lower your blood pressure. So if and potassium is an important mineral for your heart to work well, to function well. So if you keep on taking low potassium food and potassium is low, it's not going to do any good for you. So you have to keep that balance. And so not too much, but not too less. So there's a balance.
So there's some critical figures that people need to be made aware of, and to like the monitoring of that, because I don't know how fast or how slow it shifts that number, but you can imagine that if you leave it for too long and you don't keep an eye on the figures, you'll start to experience other symptoms within the heart or other parts of the body for if they're too low or too high. It's certainly a lot of management, isn't it? It's and close management to keep, needs to keep on top of that. Thanks so much for the incredible knowledge today, Evelyn. A lot of things that I've learned today, and I'm sure if people have got this kind of issue, they should be seeking out your kind of knowledge, that specialist knowledge, to be able to know what's what and what needs to be done and how you do it in a way that is safe and is not going to bring you to any more harm. Sure.
Working closely with your doctor and find dietitians that can help you managing all these issues could be very helpful. And as always, working as a team is important, because you still need a lot of the support from a doctor as well as dietitian. So you can't just rely on one. It has to be as a team.
Absolutely, a team, of course. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are going to be doing another show soon on diabetes management, which is highly linked with some of the things we've been talking about today in terms of what you do and how you do it to manage other conditions that can affect diabetes and what that can affect on other parts of the system. But for now, thanks so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks,
All
Karen.
the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.